Our scripture reading this morning comes from Matthew 25, verses 31 through 46. And as you are finding that in your Bible, I want you to make note of our sermon title that Herb will be speaking to in just a moment. And he will tell you, I don't know if he's going to pronounce that for you or not, but it's on your bracelet there if you want to see the English version of that. Let me give a little bit of background on that. These bracelets originated from First Methodist Waco and First Methodist Mansfield from the Ramsdale brothers, both of them ministers at that time. They started this God is Big Enough campaign 10 years ago when one of them, I think it was Stephen in Waco, had cancer. But since that time, these bracelets have been spread all over the world. When the Sandy Hook massacre, the school shooting, the Newtown shooting, those churches sent thousands of these to those communities to help them get through that issue. When the black church in Mississippi, I think it was Emmanuel Chapel or something like that, when they had that massacre, thousands of these went to that community. Natural disasters throughout the world, Costa Rica, hurricanes, thousands of these bracelets went to that area. Every time there's a big crisis of some sort, these two churches and other churches have chimed in too, have sent thousands of these bracelets to those communities that are suffering to allow them to know that God is big enough to get them through what they're going through. I want to share with you Matthew 25, verses 31 through 46. Hear the word of the Lord. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, then he will sit on his throne of his glory. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate people one from another, as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And he will put the sheep at his right hand and the goats at his left. Then the king will say to those at his right hand, "Come, you that are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundations of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me." Then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry and gave you food, or thirsty and gave you something to drink? And when was it that we saw you a stranger and welcomed you, or naked and gave you clothing? And when was it that we saw you sick or in prison and visited you?" And the king will answer them, "Truly I tell you, just as you did it to one of the least of these who are members of my family, you did it to me." Then he will say to those at his left hand, "You that are accursed, depart from me into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me no food. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not welcome me, naked, and you did not give me clothing, sick and in prison, and you did not visit me." Then they will also answer, "Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or naked or sick or in prison and did not take care of you?" Then he will answer them, "Truly I tell you, just as you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did not do it to me." And all these will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteous into eternal life. The word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. All right, Herb's going to come this morning and share his Kenya trip with us.
Reminds me of a song years ago. He's got the whole world in his hands. 2019 was an awesome year for me. Probably one of the best years in my life as I look back on it. And it reminds me of this scripture in Philippians that says, I can do all things which he has called me to do through him who strengthens and empowers me to fulfill his purpose. Philippians 4:13 in the Amplified Version. In 2019, when I got back from that last trip, my weakness had overcome me. I went to the doctor and I told my doctor, I said, I'm sure I don't have energy anymore. I wind down at noon. It's hard to handle those 50-pound bags to feed my cattle. He just looked at me and said, well, maybe you're expecting too much. Well, yeah, I'm 77 years old at that time. Well, they were planning the 2020 mission trip. And I was asked by Harold and several other people, were you going to make that trip? And I said, no, it's a hard trip. I've been twice. No, I don't think I'm going. Sometime just before the 1st of April, one night when I went to bed, before I went to sleep, it wasn't a dream, this voice in my head says, what have you got to do that's more important than going halfway around the world and baptizing those people in Christian love and fellowship? I was stunned. I was shocked. I couldn't answer it. I didn't have an answer. I didn't have anything more important. I thought about it for a few days, and then one day I said, Lord, if I'm going on that trip, I got to, you know what shape my body's in, I got to get in better shape. Heart's skipping it, no energy. About that time, my garden was coming off, and I started eating beets and fresh things out of the garden. I started getting stronger. My heart started beating right. I was on a medication to make my heart beat right, and it never did beat right. Never did help, I could tell. I kept telling the doctor, that's not helping it. Well, don't quit taking it, you'll have a stroke. Well, I finally decided that my heart was beating right. I didn't need that medicine, and I quit it. Never felt a thing different except I felt better and my heart started beating faster. So we had a covenant partnership meeting, and I took my checkbook along and I asked Lisa if she had a spot on the trip yet. Oh yeah, she said, we need you to go along. I said, I thought you weren't going. I told her what happened. Yeah, she said. So I made my down payment for the meeting just in time. The deadline was coming up pretty soon. So I got all set to go on the trip. Had a good summer, worked long days, had plenty of energy to get through the days, and it all went well. I was just overwhelmed. And here's the group from Graham that we started out the morning we left. Steve and Marcia King, hard workers. Trish Rogers, the nurse, excellent nurse. Doug Steger, he was a retired optometrist. He took along the Lions Club spot machine, they call it. It looks into eyes of people under a certain age and can prescribe glasses for them, see what they need. They did a wonderful job over there. Okay. We had a good trip over. When we got there, there's our drivers. The one in the middle is Edward. He drove for us last year. We became really good friends, and we were overjoyed to see each other. We talked about God last year, and as we were driving out towards Maua the next day, he reminded me of a conversation we had When you love the Lord, He gives you the desires of your hearts. And he was showing where he was living in a newer part of Nairobi, out in the north side of Nairobi. That country is growing and building so, and they'd had lots of rain, and all the flowers and shrubs and things were just beautiful over there. It's just a tropical, really a tropical paradise. The weather's always wonderful. The sun comes up the same time every morning. It's right on the equator. Goes down the same time every day. Some people may think that's boring. And we got out and stretched our legs, and we're looking over there's a field of rice, big, huge area of rice. We saw a lot of rice drying, and they were having trouble drying the rice because they was having so much rain. It's supposed to normally be the dry season, but we had rain quite a bit that Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday we started working up there. Okay, and we stopped at the bio-intensified farming. You notice there's some barrels. There's one to the left and one in the middle of the screen and one on the right. And they do some intensified farming, and they show farmers how to do this when they have small plots of land. And some of those people live out in the bush, don't have much area to grow stuff because they grow most of their own food right there where they live. Because they don't have money to go to the grocery store and buy food. They probably buy just the essentials, the salt and seasonings that they need. Okay? And we arrived. This is in the courtyard of there's rooms on each side of the area we see. We stockpiled our luggage there, and that's all 16 of us that was on that trip. We took all day Saturday to get up there, and then Sunday morning we go to church. And you notice this guy is holding a rooster. But anyway, to back up a little bit, when we first got to church there, about 10 o'clock, they fed us, and then we had some arrowroot and some bananas and fruit and things, and then we go in for the service, and we started at 10:45, and we're having a convention, and the pastors were all at the convention. The lay people had the service. We had praise and singing and prayers and Bible readings, and finally about 1:15, they'd start taking up the collection, and long worship service, and it's all joyful and such a wonderful place to worship. And the people that don't have money to make a contribution to the church, they bring in. There was some small plastic sacks of ground corn, and they auction those off in the church, and the money goes into the church funds. And one picture I took here, this guy's holding a rooster, and they auction it off, and the money goes into the church funds. Okay. After the service, let's see. This is a hospital scene. I think, did we skip over something there, didn't we? Pardon? It's not in the same order, huh? Okay. Well, we'll jump around a little bit. But this is Monday morning when we were in the hospital. 2 years ago, this was an unimproved alley down in the hospital, and they've added on. They covered walkways and flower beds, and the flowers are all just beautiful. Okay. There's some of the flowers and the flower beds. Picture doesn't make it. It just doesn't. Anyway, here's some new improvement in the hospital. Dental chair. They had two areas. There's one here and then one just to the right of the screen. Nice new facilities in that hospital. The hospital is really growing and improving. Now last year when I was here, this entranceway was just in framework. They used 3x2s for their frames, and instead of 2x4s like we do, and this was just framed out, and now it's all finished in a nice place to take in the casualties. The biggest casualties are motorcycle accidents because there's so many motorcycles. these rallies that we have here in the States, like up in, oh, where is it? Anyway, they can't hold a candle to the motorcycles over there. There's just thousands and thousands. And that's about up and around Maua, I'll get it right in a minute. Maua, that's about the number one transportation source. They haul couches on it, they haul whatever, deliver milk, deliver drinks, just, they load them down with just cases and cases of drinks. After we'd made the tour of the hospital, we had tea at Katie Mann's house, and that last picture was the president of the administrator of the hospital. This is a street scene going out Monday morning to to the work site. It's this little community is about 5 miles south of Nairobi, and when we got to this is a school where we had our health fair, and that's where we had to park our vehicles because the road was washed out, and we had to walk about a mile to get down to the work site and carry all our stuff in. Now the only vehicles that could get through there was these high clearance Land Rovers, but it was about a mile down in about a 250-foot elevation drop. Yeah, this is a scene there at the school when we drove up there to go to work. While those children came from everywhere. They came out. They just come running out of the classrooms. They're just so excited to see the white missionaries. Now, I didn't get pictures of the first. I don't know. It rained off and on, and I left my camera in where it wouldn't get wet, and I just failed to get some of the original first pictures of when we got started. But anyway, these are some pictures here of working on the house. That was Elizabeth there on the ladder painting. There's some of the workers out there. Some of these pictures didn't come out really good. They're kind of narrow. There's yours truly driving nails. Okay. Go ahead. Okay, go ahead. Enough is enough. And it was pretty crowded space there. I couldn't get back up far enough away really to get a good picture of the front of the house. The front was towards the little old house that they were living in on the right, and it was just like an 8x8. I say living in, it's just a shelter to get in out of the rain and to sleep in at night in a safe place. And but the one they living in didn't have a concrete floor. The water just run through. Now, there's an older house here that we'd get in, and that's the one right here in the foreground when it rained while we was working. And in the background is, of course, the new house that we just finished. This is out in the street, and it's the back side of the house, but the front side is toward the house they were living in. The little metal building on the left is their, what they call a washroom, but it's their privy outhouse. And there's Charles on the ladder. He's done some finish work on the roof. And this was a scene out beside. I was standing, and when I took the picture of Charles, then I just turned and took the picture of this valley and then the mountains in the back. Beautiful scene, beautiful country over there. So pleasant, never any high wind. Now this is that little building in the back. That's where, like I say, they were living. This building on the shed on the side, they've got a milk goat in there, and they feed that milk goat. And then this chair, that's the only chair I saw that lady had, and she let me use it one day because she thought I looked too tired. And that's where that hollow log is where she grinds her corn. And there's, the house is just nearly finished, got the gutter on, and they were going to deliver a tank. It hadn't been delivered by the time we finished up, but they'd catch the rainwater. And they had been catching water. They just took ponds and behind the house that they were living in and put pans back there. And the days that we were working, they caught enough water to mix the cement with. And this little lady here is a Hawaiian, and she was really good with children. She sang with them, and we'll come across the video in a little bit. But anyway, she painted the sign. Very talented. She painted, put that creosote on the building, and her folks came over from Hawaii, and we dedicated the house in the name of the trip. God is big enough. And then we're getting down here to the day of the dedication, and I can't see that too well, but some of the family members, yeah, the grandmother is over there by the old house in the background. And now she lives off in another house, I think. I didn't see where she lived. Now Duncan is the boy's name that we built the house for. And he is standing there along with his mother. And that's Duncan in the middle between Trish Rogers and I. And on the shirt, he says, "Never, ever give up." He has dedicated his life to the Lord, and he goes to school, and he's had AIDS all his life, but he's under medication, and it's a working. Back up again. Can you back up? I want to talk about Brian. This is Brian. He's a real go-getter. He's a pastor from Iredell. He used to be an alcoholic and a drug addict and sold drugs. He admits, "I was the worst of the worst." He said, like St. Paul, "I was the worst of the worst until God converted me." And he had a conversion, and he is now a minister. He's still studying the ministry and carrying two congregations. Really doing work. He's a real prayer warrior. When we were walking through the hospital, he was praying for the babies that was in the hospital and praying for the patients there. These are scenes of the day of the dedication of the house. There in the foreground is along with the house, they get 2 new mattresses. The main thing they do, people are outside all the time because the weather's so great over there. The only time they're inside is when it's either raining or at night time for them to sleep. And then those are the workers there. Charles is to my left, and he's the contractor. He is a real worker, go-getter. He says he's 68. And I call him my younger brother because Kathy Mann seems thinking he's older than that, but he won't admit how old he is because if he gets up in his 70s, they're going to make him retire, and he don't want to retire. The middle worker there, just a minute. The middle worker is Nick. And while we were working one day, I said, "Nick, do you love the Lord?" His face just broke into a shine, just like a big light bulb. He said, "Yes, I do." And then Elizabeth is on the other one on the end. And she is a real worker, a sweet lady, hard-working girl. She keeps right up with old Charles and keeps him in line. One day they were really having it out, and it sounded like she got the last word. They were speaking in Swahili. And I told Elizabeth, I said, "That's the way to tell him," and then she just laughed. Okay. This is just a road scene going back, and there's a little river running down in front of those businesses, and they boardwalks to get across the river to get to their houses and businesses. Okay. This is a new building at the school that they're building. Just another street scene. Got back up on the highway. And that's I just wanted to get a picture of New Hope Church. We went by that New Hope Church where they had the water well every day. Okay. And that is the administration building. And they have signs up on the front. You can't hardly read it, but I'll say they have very good discipline there at those schools, and they have to. I think there was this probably went up to the 6th grade, and there was about 700 kiddos in that school. But up on signs on the front, it says, "Success is a commitment, not a wish." And another sign said, "I know why I'm here." Another one says, "My goals are set, no turning back. Discipline is a clear road towards success." And they are putting out some pretty sharp kiddos. Okay. Well, this is a scene where we're packing up and getting ready to leave on, let's say it's Saturday morning, I guess it was. Anyway, I don't know, I think I skipped over that. My leg had swollen going over there, riding on the plane for so long, and then we were, 4 days getting up there and then going Sunday and not doing much. And I was having a little trouble walking, and they thought, anyway, my right leg calf muscle was cramping. And so Trish thought I ought to have it checked out. I thought it felt like it had a blood clot. And she said, "Well, we better get you checked out." Well, they have nice facilities over at that hospital. They did a sonogram on my leg, no blood clot, but the doctor figured my ankle had swollen so there wasn't much blood flowing through my leg. So he prescribed some medicine and a pressure shock. And by Tuesday morning, I was ready to go, and I went on to work. They tried to get me to not to go because we had to walk that mile. And I said, "No, I can make it. No problem." And I did. Everything worked. We got the job done, and they gave me a little warrior shield there that morning we were getting ready to leave, and I was kind of overwhelmed by that because they thought that I just went way above and beyond, but it was just nothing extra than what I normally do. So I had a little honor there. When we were getting ready to leave, we looked across the street. There's a little manufacturing place across the street. This guy's over here making little handles for little cook pots. And go ahead. And he was hammering those little handles out, and then they bring out those cook pots, and they're made out of. There was a clay pot that's been through the furnace, ceramic, I guess you call it. And he made the handles for those little pots, and they had, while we were there, they put together, they had those things ready fired in a metal encasement for them. You put charcoal in there and a metal plate on top, cooking. They use those in restaurants. One of the restaurants we ate at, somebody ordered some beef cooked a certain way, and it came out on one of those cooking pots. That's something I've never seen before. Lots of building going on in Kenya. They're at Meru University, and you notice they're working up there, and you look close, there's wheelbarrows, and they're hauling, they just pull all that material up there with a rope in a 5-gallon bucket. And they mix the cement up there and pour it in those stands. There's some road scenes coming up. We were going back down to Nairobi, actually we went to the safari next. And all along, everywhere up and down the roads we went, you'd see people, farmers with their goats and cattle out grazing the highway. There's apartments being built, and the one to the right of the scene there is a new apartment building. There's a new building going up on the left, okay, and then on the right, the next scene will be that same apartment building in the back, but another apartment building being built over on the right. The Chinese are building lots of apartment buildings over there. I saw a billboard that says no down, no interest, 12-year payout. They can be that the building is extremely cheap over there, and there's a nice house, but all the nice places, you see some really nice houses and places, but they're all surrounded with a security fence. And when we got the safari, we went out. This is taken in. I was sitting in the restaurant by the window, and this old pelican comes up, wanting a handout, I guess. And there's a cactus tree, and that's one of the huts that we stayed in. It looks kind of coarse, but on the inside, it's just a zipper tent, real coarse, heavy tent. But inside, it's got carpet on the floor, and in the bathroom, it's tile, and real nice bathroom, plenty of hot water, plenty of electricity, everything works. Really nice place to stay out there on that safari. First year Harold and I were over there, we didn't see any of these crosswalks, any of these crossovers. There was just crosswalks. You had to slow down. They had speed bumps, and you had to slow down enough to get back in first gear and cross over real slow. But now the speed stays up. We saw dozens of these crossovers built high enough where tall trucks go under them, no problem. More building going on. This was out coming back into Nairobi. This is getting back to the guest house to spend the night before we fly out the next day. Okay. Just some scenes of the people that's on the trip. This lady on the left was from Tennessee. I forgot to mention that. And she just fell in with our group and just fit in just like all the rest of us. Worked, drove nails, whatever needed to be done. She'd do it. We had a very diversified group, and a lot of good things were taking place on this trip. This is a picture. One of the things we did before we left, this is in Nairobi, when we caught the plane that night. But anyway, that day we went to a bead factory, and they make beautiful things at that factory. They make mugs and beads, just cups and saucers and all sorts of things. Will that video play, or okay, the video's not going to play. I'm sorry, we couldn't hear they sang a beautiful song on this video. And at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they quit their work. They sit there and they pray, and then they sing a religious song, and it was just beautiful. It had harmony in it, and they do it. They started, this lady right in the middle in the front started when they started that bead factory in 1975. And it was started by 3 ladies, and it was to create jobs for single women and disadvantaged people. And now they have over 300 workers in that factory. And they ship beads and ceramics and things all over the world, I guess, now that the mission people come by and people have stuff shipped everywhere. And that's it. We missed out on it. And the picture on the front of the bulletin took place that Sunday afternoon. And I had the privilege and the honor to speak on behalf of the West Texas District. And I'm not too good on this impromptu speech. But they asked me to speak and read the words off of that plaque when they dedicated this distribution area. And I said, how great it is that we are able to come halfway around the world and provide a water for this church and its surrounding community. I said, God has blessed America. And He's blessed us. And here we are, blessed to be a blessing to you. There was people that had faith that you would have a water well. St. Paul describes faith. It's to be sure of the things that you hope for, to be certain of the things that you cannot see. St. Paul talked about all the men of faith in the Bible, from Abel, Enoch, Noah, Abraham, Moses, took ordinary people that had faith to do great things. I said, so keep the faith. That was really a great day. And then on the way home, one of the final things that was really touched me, most of us sat together, they placed us all together on the plane. But there was one, the person that was going to sit beside me decided to upgrade because they could get up into a seat with more room. And there was a young black man came and took that seat. He was a young man from central Kenya, right where we had came from. And I asked him about what he was doing and where he was from, and he was going into Dallas to go to diesel school. He wanted to know what I was doing over there, and I told him, showed him pictures of what we'd been doing. I showed him the armband I had on, and it had that Swahili. He read it and he said, God is big enough. And he smiled real big. And he said, you all are building God's kingdom. And that was what it's all about. Amen.
Thank you, Herb. And I think they're getting ready to put together another trip for anyone interested in going over there and doing some of the same work, building an AIDS house and working in the hospital, taking medical clinics out in the bush. But God is big enough to make that happen when we allow God to work through us.